All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in.
I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Tricia Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Welcome, Young Cubs, to Fangirls Going Rogue. I am one of your hosts, Teresa Delgado, and with me, as always, are my fellow fangirls in the Force, Sarah Woloski, from Skywalking Through Neverland. How's it going? How late did you stay up last night?
I am relaxed, and yesterday was one of those 50-hour days that you see in a Gary Marshall movie where we we took this long walk in the morning, and then I don't know what else happened, but we ended up going to see Ghostbusters, and then we went and did this walk in the Naples canals, which is beautiful. It's all the starry lights. Then we got home about 11:30 and put in our midnight snack in the oven, and then we watched Book of Boba Fett, and it was amazing. It was just one of those awesome days.
That sounds nice. Tricia, how are you? Did you stay up late or did you just get up early?
No, because, we got to do 3 a.m. here on the East Coast. So I just woke up, turned the TV on, watched me some Book of Boba Fett. And there you go. Fully rested.
I tried to stay up and I was up till like 1:30 or something like that. And I was like, I just can't. So I laid down, and then my husband woke me up at like 3 o'clock and was like, Boba Fett's out. You should get up. And I'm like, I just went to sleep. And so I woke up at 6 and I was like, okay, Boba Fett time. So I watched it and then I went back to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's fun. Yeah. That's the one thing about being on the West Coast. It's nice. Disney Plus stuff comes at midnight. So I'm not really staying up past my bedtime. Maybe a little bit because my bedtime is about midnight, but it's fine.
Oh man. Okay. Well, we are at the end of 2021 already, which is weird to me because I feel like I'm still in 2020. So it's very confusing, but we do get to finish it up with Boba Fett, and we're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett right now. So if you haven't seen it, by the time you're listening to this is going to be your spoiler warning because we are going to dive into it. So if you haven't seen it, now's the time. Pause us and come back to us later. Like fast forward a little bit. Okay. So initial thoughts, anybody?
I can go. I'll go. Sure. So I enjoyed this episode a lot. I thought they did a really good job in mixing the whole Boba Fett backstory with the present day Boba Fett who has taken over Jabba's palace with Fennec Shand. And so like for me, this series has been all about Fennec Shand and just seeing a lot of her. And I feel like we did get a lot of her, even though she would say things to Boba Fett and he wouldn't really listen to what she was saying, but still we did see a lot of her and interaction. And then, so I did enjoy that. And then we also got to see how Boba Fett escaped from the Sarlacc Pit actually on screen instead of in comics or video games or wherever that has been depicted. So I thought it was very well done. And by the end of the episode, I had felt like I had just settled in and was like, oh, it ended. Like I was taken aback by the ending because I felt like it just had such momentum to keep going.
So I would agree with you that I had just settled in when it ended and I was like, okay. And it left me with this, I was like this, okay. Like I enjoyed it, but I was also like, because I was like right there and I was waiting for like some sort of episode closing moment or something like that. And so, I mean, it left it very open for like, here we go, which is fine with me. And I agree with you. I like seeing how he got out of the Sarlacc pit. I did have some questions about some things that you guys already answered. And I feel like I'm stupid for not realizing that those were the answers. So we'll get into that. But I did think it was interesting to see Mos Espa, because I don't feel like we've ever seen Mos Espa, because it's like a giant city. And I don't recall seeing anything like that in the other movies, or TV shows. So I thought that was really interesting. And we're going to talk about it, but the Twi'leks are different, and it was creeping me out a little bit. Like, that was kind of off-putting. It actually did that thing that Tricia, you've said before. It kind of like took me out of it for a second. I was like,
what was different?
Well, we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, because I did not notice whatever you guys
those
noticed.
are just
all right.
all my initial. Those are like my initial.
Okay.
Initial thoughts things, and then also one of my initial thoughts was, there's no Kowakian monkey lizard, and that makes me sad. So
not even eating them. Not even eating a fried one that's been roasted on a spit.
Ew.
Well, we see that in Mandalorian.
Yeah, I know.
Ew.
It's kind of weird. It freaks me out.
I just love the other one watching the other one being roasted, going.
So, Tricia, what about you?
I'm going to echo y'all's sentiment, which is it felt like it ended more quickly than I thought. And it's interesting because I'm thinking like Hawkeye ended on sort of like a cliffhanger, which I'm used to doing some, different serial storytelling does that.
This first episode, you mean? Sorry.
Well, every Hawkeye ended with a cliffhanger until the last one. I felt that it was always like what's going to happen? But this one just felt like, usually you have something happen, you resolve something, and then you have a cliffhanger. And this one felt like, I felt like maybe they needed to put the second episode up like they did with WandaVision or something. Like it wasn't quite like they're more, I'm thinking, I'm looking out on the internet afterwards, the rest of the day. A lot of people are like, "Ooh, there's this nod, there's this nod, there's this nod." So there's tons of things I think if you're a Star Wars fan that are going to intrigue you and you're going to be interested in. Like they don't even explain what the Bacta tank is. So I don't know, like if you were just sitting down to watch it and if you would be like, okay, so what is this? Or, and then I went back and watched it a second time. I understand what they're doing. I just felt like it wasn't as clear and as intentional. And maybe there was a little bit too much of the view of like fans watching it as opposed to how would somebody new receive it and where is it going?
That makes sense. I mean, I think if I was a general viewer watching, like specifically with the Bacta tank, I may not know what the name of that is, but we've seen enough in other sci-fi movies or in other movies of people being in like a solution, that I'd be like, that's probably like a healing tank, or something. But but again, I've watched a lot of sci-fi. So, but maybe something like that, just for that. But I see what you're saying, because there's definitely a lot of moments.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are cool that your brain's like going, oh, I recognize this from Star Wars and this from Star Wars. But I wonder if like someone who doesn't have that, and the Bacta tank is just like one of a million things that happen in that episode that it might just be like, so what is this? Although there were some compelling things that happen with Boba Fett that I still think lay exactly what I said was happening with Boba Fett. The teaser poster shown the light down on his heart.
Oh.
And, this episode is all about rebirth. I mean, he's in the kind of off-white, whitish outfit. And even though he does blow somebody up, at one point, he's still trying very hard to act in a way that isn't really a crime lord way. So,
yeah. Now, as far as the Sarlacc Pit Escape, how was that for you guys? As far as, I mean, it's something we've been waiting and waiting for, and fans have been, I don't know, like thinking up their own ways of how it happened. And then of course we had it in the comics and stuff like that, but how was it for you, Sarah?
So I feel like that line that 3PO says in Return of the Jedi, where he's like, you will be digested over 1,000 years in the stomach of this Sarlacc. And I feel like they pretty much plucked the image I had in my imagination of that from this opening scene of the Book of Boba Fett, where he's in the folds of the lining of the stomach or whatever that whatever that is, Teresa's face. And I feel like I've imagined like exactly that. Now I've never, like, the way Boba Fett gets out, I was just excited to see what he did in this iteration, because I know it's been different in other iterations, but I thought that was very clever how he used the stormtrooper air to like get his own air, and then use his fist, like, ew, gross, but punching the stomach lining, oh, that was gross, and then using his fire to get out. So I thought they did an excellent job. Like, it answered all my questions on how did Boba Fett get out of the Sarlacc. And I also was just, he was so dusty and dirty and sandy after getting out of there. I was like, oh, that's
because he had
gross
guts all over him.
I
and
know.
sand is stuck to him.
I know.
Goo plus sand, and now you hear Anthony
Yes.
going, I hate sand.
Yes. So I was very happy with that. I felt that was like awesome fan service in a good way.
Tricia, what about you?
I felt bad for that stormtrooper.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't think the stormtrooper was still living.
Well, that was my one thing. I was like, dude, he still has oxygen left. Like, what happened? How did he die so fast that he still had oxygen left? That was kind of my question. Really random, weird, but I was like, okay, there's a stormtrooper in there, and all right, he's definitely dying. But I think, to me, the interesting thing is, I think I always presumed that his scars were from like the acid, but now I'm wondering if it's not like the flamethrower didn't like superheat the area he was in, and his own helmet like didn't just burn him. Like, he was like, those are burns as far as, instead of like acid burns. Like,
dang it, Tricia, because you answered the question for me earlier, and now you're changing my mind. No. So that was one of my questions, was why is his skin like all scarred up and stuff? And Tricia was like, stomach acid from the Sarlacc, and I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I rolled with it, but now it's like,
like,
I'm just wondering, but I'm wondering between Kid Boba Fett in Clone Wars and Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, did something happen in that time period that he got all scarred up and we didn't know about it? And then now we're seeing him without his helmet on, or like, is the skin that way because of the Sarlacc and because of the rocket that flame thingy, or like, why is the skin like that?
Well, also laying out in the sun for however many hours of exposure didn't help. It exacerbated whatever had happened. So I just felt it was a lot of sun damage as well. And I was just like, oh, how dirty and dusty can you be? And I just
he
really
got dragged.
wanted him to
He
have
was
a
getting
bath.
dragged through the sand.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I felt so bad for him. I was like, oh man, that dude, this sucks. Like, when he's getting dragged by his hands, and
yeah. So as far as like how it was for me, I thought it was fine. I don't know if I'd ever really given it too much thought about how he got out, other than that he obviously gets out. Sorry. And it's just kind of like, okay, sure, that's plausible. But anytime anybody's hand busts out of something like from the ground, it immediately, that image takes me back to the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, where they think that they've destroyed Shredder in the garbage thing, and then his hand pops up and he's like going like this, like he's got his hands and it's like I'm alive. And so I'm like, he's had a Shredder moment.
Wow. That's
clearly
hilarious.
That movie was very impactful on me as a child.
As it should be.
Yes. Wow.
It was a good movie.
That's how most of us can remember the names of famous artists.
Well, I know,
Yep.
right? Exactly.
Very true.
Okay, so what are some things that stuck out? So here's where we're going to talk about the Twilight. So I'll just bring this up now.
Okay.
So we've always kind of seen Twilight males in two different ways. Like there was the original Twilight males look like Bib Fortuna, like they have like the one Liku that is like really big and stuff like that. And then in the Clone Wars, they introduced male Twi'leks having two head tails and not looking like how Bib Fortuna looked. So we got used to that and the way that they've been presented ever since. Well, the first Twi'lek we see is this stooge of the mayor of Mos Espa or whatever. And he's way too human. Like way too human, the way he talks, his mannerisms. I mean, he looks like a human that they stuck, a Twilight costume on, He wasn't believable as a Twilight or like from that species. And that totally pulled me out. And then when we get into the cantina, we have the Twilight that is the owner of the cantina. And her design was definitely different as well. And she didn't have like the little, they have like the little tiny horns on the side. Like she was missing her little tiny horns, or if they were there, I didn't see them. And she was a little more the way that I envisioned Twi'leks to be, with their mannerisms and how they move and how they talk and, things like that. But she also had a little bit too much of a human aspect to her. So, but definitely the first guy, I was like, oh my God, what is this? It's just so,
Okay.
yeah. So I don't know, Tricia, what did you notice? Because I know you and I both were like kind of,
It was more so with the mock shies, the mayor's stooge, as you called him. I like that. He's that actor is a pretty famous improv guy. So he was hit. I think in part it was almost because like the way he acted as sort of the stooge at first. The first time I didn't realize he was a Twi'lek at first. And then I was like, oh, he's a Twi'lek, but he looks so like human. And he was not any color. He was just pretty much human skin colored. They didn't.
Okay.
So I think that was one way. And we obviously know they come in different colors and there can be different variations. But for me, that one was the more noticeable, where I was kind of like, okay, that's weird. But I think it was because I didn't realize he was at first. And then I think there was a back shot and I was like, oh, he's a Twilight guy. And because his face looked so human that I didn't even key on, and he was acting in this kind of over the top way to, sell the stooge kind of play that he was making. So I was like, okay, yeah, that one was kind of a little weird. And then even when I watched it the second time, I'm like, okay, I looked at him. I'm like, yeah, he's clearly a Twi'lek when he walks in. It's just the way it was acted and set and whatever just kind of made me. But I think what do you call them? The Gamorrean guards are a little different than we've seen them too. And they were in The Mandalorian. I think they made them more like humanish
and athletic.
Yeah, very
exactly.
athletic, like buff, not just big fat pig guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're changing things up, and obviously species could have many different iterations or ways that they look. And maybe that's just where they're going with it. But, you see something one way for so long, and it definitely did. Teresa, I felt the same way you did.
Sarah, and so what about you? Did you not notice anything or?
Oh, and the Twi'leks. No, they read as Twi'leks to me. It didn't bug me. So I think I was just immersed in the story at that point and like what was going to happen with the tribute to the mayor versus not. And again, I was paying attention to Finnick.
I can't tell you what else threw me out of this episode was the Boston Dynamics robot creatures. The only thing my brain says was Boston Dynamics robots. that was like what happened. Like as soon as I saw it, that's all I could think of, and not that we're in Star Wars and that they're, I don't know, goat sheeps. I think Sarah thinks they're dogs, maybe.
I saw it as a dog. Like that to me, it came across as like a Doberman.
Well, the girl was like herding them. So that's kind of where I got the like sheep or goat idea in my head. But
okay.
Yeah, it was just weird.
Yeah. I've never heard of this Boston Dynamics robot, so it didn't pull me out of it. But was there any? I'm sorry, that sucks. What was there? You know what pulled Richard out of it was the fact that there was a stormtrooper in the Sarlacc, because he was like, stormtrooper didn't fall in, and I'm like, but people fell in before Boba. There's other people down there. He's like, yeah, but not a stormtrooper. I was like, yes. And apparently there's not, because no stormtroopers were on Boba Fett's rig, but they could have beforehand. Right.
Yeah. Like maybe the stormtrooper was an idiot and he went there
fell
on
in
his own, like some dum-dum head. I don't know.
Right. Oh yeah. Exactly. And that's what we kind of came to, but we had this whole argument in the middle of the show.
I'm sure they probably came and didn't offer enough of a tribute tribute and got their. You can either go to the menagerie or you get to go to the if you're bad enough, you go to the Sarlacc pit and everybody has a drink and watches you fall in. But there's in this, talking about that there could have been other times, you kind of see the passage of time, and that the cantina is like brighter, and they call it the sanctuary, and Jabba's palace is empty. So there's droids serving
liquid drinks,
and stuff like that. So it's, a little bit, there's things have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So I say, let's go around and like say some fun Easter eggs that we noticed, that we enjoyed, rather than took us out of it.
Okay. The only Easter, I'm grabbing this one because this is the only Easter egg I think I saw, was they used DJ Rex or Rex from Star Tours. And so I saw that, but I don't know if I saw others.
Okay.
Yay!
So the one that it didn't take me out, but it kind of made me sad, was the Trandoshan offered the Wookiee belt. Oh. And we know from the Clone Wars that the Trandoshans have hunted Wookiees in the past. I was like, is that a Wookiee? I mean, everybody's getting.
I know. Same. I was very sad about that. I was very excited. Oh, go ahead.
The Trandoshan was played by the director, Robert Rodriguez, in this episode.
Yes, that's fun. So I did notice that too. My favorite Easter egg would have to be Max Rebo, who's playing with a droid drummer and one of the Figrin D'An modal nodes, I'm assuming. So maybe that's even Figrin D'An himself. So I thought that was cool to see Max Rebo. I was like, yay, he's still gigging.
I want to see how many times you can say that name fast. Figrin D'An. It's a mouthful.
Figrin D'An.
There's also 8D8 from Return of the Jedi, who tortures the Gonk droids, is the droid that introduces the tributes as they come in front of the altar. Although I have to say, the whole time, like Fennec's like trying to take it up a notch, and Boba's like, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. And she's like, can I kill him?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was funny when when an alien came in and they're like, blah, 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 blah. Aqualish, I think, right? And Fennec is like, did you get that? Maybe we should get a protocol droid. Yeah, maybe.
88 can only announce. He can't translate. So at least they brought us a tribute. That's good. We got a tribute.
Yes. And then I did like when we went to the backstory, the Massif, which is the creature that the Tusken Raiders, they're kind of like Tusken Raider dogs, was, watching the prisoners. And I felt it was cool that the Massif got a lot more screen time, because like in Attack of the Clones, you only see a couple of them like fighting, or they didn't look like real creatures. They looked very CGI. And I feel in this one, this Massif had a lot of what is it, like sentience behind it. Like just even though Boba had to knock him out, he still pet him, which was sweet. But I did like the massive here.
Speaking of just the Tusken Raiders in general, we know that the Mandalorian, the episode with Cobb Vanth, who has the Boba Fett armor that the Jawas took, he got it from the Jawas. And we see the Tusken Raiders in that episode in like a different light. They show more human, try to make them less like these savages and more, they have a language and they communicate and they work together. And then this episode comparatively really showed the Tuskens in a savage way again, dragging him out. And I mean, it lines up with Attack of the Clones. They would take people. That's what they did. And he obviously earns his way to his first tribute on Tatooine when he earns that drink of water from the
desert
plant.
cacti.
Yeah.
Well, what do you call it?
I just called it like
gourd.
a gourd. It's like a gourd.
Okay.
And but I was like, okay, well, we had this like step this way and we stepped. Now we see them back another way. And I was like, I can't say that I've formulated how I feel about that, but it was just noticeable that.
Well, okay, I have an answer for you. I think in this episode, we're really seeing the Tusken Raiders through Boba's eyes. And to him, they're unknown at this point. They're not a known quantity. They're very savage, like you said, like and to him, at first. So I feel like that's how they're showing it in this episode. Now, maybe as we go along, and if we do see more backstory, which I do hope they do, I feel like then maybe he'll be learning the signing language that they have and things like that. So he wasn't invited in the tents of the Tusken Raiders to see how they actually commune with each other.
That makes sense. I did like that the warrior was a woman in this episode, like that there, it wasn't just, you could definitely tell that some of the Tuskens were women under the costumes, and the actress has already put out there that she was the one that got to fight him. She's did stunt work in Captain Marvel and some other big movies. So that was kind of cool. Okay. We're shaking things up. And I did like to see the way the kid sort of, how I like the interaction with Boba and the kid, because the kid just like kind of bullies him with the other kids. And when Boba gets the chance, I think that's just a huge character show where he doesn't hit him back. And the kid eventually learns from that. So as far as showing something about Boba Fett, we're talking about a crime lord. I don't think he's going to be a crime lord when we're done.
Yeah. I also feel like, I mean, the way that they interwove that backstory with the present day story, I feel was really well done, especially in terms of the Tuskens, because all throughout the present day story, Boba's like, no, I don't want to rule. He's like constantly doing things that Jabba would not do. Like he's not riding on a litter. He's not showing how strong he is or torturing people. And you're kind of like, well, why? Because in this kind of environment, you really need to show your strength, right? But by seeing this backstory at the same time where Boba eventually, even without his armor, was able to best, like a creature, and he didn't hit the Tusken Raider kid, and he did all this stuff that really earned him respect among the Tuskens. And so I think that experience really showed him that's what he wants to do in this new situation. However, it's a new dynamic and new people. I think he's going to run into issues, but it really shows you his thought process and where he's coming from.
I have another question. So the kid, the youngling, takes the two of them out into the desert, and then they see this homestead being attacked, and that's a nod back to the Red Key Raiders or the mining collective that we see Cobb Vanth talks about in that episode that he's in the season 2 of Mandalorian episode 1, where he talks about the people that there was a power vacuum and that there were people that came in and, tried to take power. I think that's who that is that we're seeing. But did he take them out there to dig up the cactus, or was he taking him out there to show that and they just happened to I'm trying to figure out why he took them out into the desert is my question. I wasn't clear on that.
No, I wasn't either. I thought they were going that direction, and then because of what happened, they turned around and ended up just digging up cactus gourds. I don't know. Yeah, that wasn't very clear either.
I agree. I wasn't clear on that. But now that you say that, Teresa, it maybe puts me in mind, maybe they were intending to raid that not village, but that homestead, and instead found other raiders there first, tagging it, no less. So that's the only thing I can think of. But I feel like we're going to see those same raiders in the future. So I think it was just a setup for us, the audience.
Okay. I'm good. I'm glad because I was just like, well, why did they got here? Obviously, then they start digging them up and they find the monster, which Teresa, you asked. So ask the question for everybody.
What the hell is that monster? Seriously, it looks like it came out of one of those Universal monster movies or whatever. And it didn't really have a tail. It had a stub butt.
Like a minotaur or something, a centaur.
It was
centaur.
It had 4 arms and 2 legs. And I'm like, well, it's not a rancor. And I'm like, what is this? I
like that it wasn't recognizable as, oh, hey, there's another nod to Star Wars. That it was a different monster.
Well, see, I was like, crate dragon. And then you finally see all of it. And I'm like, not a crate dragon.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
So actually, I was reading Richard said he gave him Ray Harryhausen vibes.
Yeah.
Because which it's probably a tribute to that. But I was reading this article on Laughing Plays from Mike Celestino, who shows a picture of the Kraken from Clash of the Titans, which Ray Harryhausen had created. And it actually looks a lot like that, from the face and the 4 arms and a body that looks like a man's torso. But then the Kraken goes into almost a mermaid tail. So that's where it differs from this creature here.
And
Book of Boba Fett.
Watching it the second time, it definitely has a stop motion vibe to it.
Yes.
Which would be, the Jason and the Argonauts and all those kind of stories that they told and did that stop motion. I don't know if it is actual stop motion, but there seems to be the intention that they're doing an homage to it and making it kind of look that way. When they played it off. But we have to talk about how he killed the centaur creature, because it's a nod to
Leia killing Jabba. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. So we're gonna do that. I was really cool. I was like, well, at least take your shirt off. Just make it even.
Well, that one shot after he has defeated the creature, and it just zooms in on Boba Fett with the chain in his hand, an up angle shot. And you're like, yeah, he earned the respect. It was cool.
He earned it. And then they hacked that thing's head off somehow. You think, I know, as he's walking, the kids running with it. And I'm like, did they chain it off? Did they have how'd they get that thing off? That's a lot of work. Let me tell you.
Yeah, but I thought that was cute that he let the kid talk about how, almost as if he's the one that did it, or that he, whatever, and he didn't take any credit for it or anything. And that's how he ends up earning respect from the leader of their tribe of Tusken Raiders, which I was like, well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in some cultures, and you have to go out and slay the beast or make a kill to sort of bring yourself into adulthood. And I'm wondering if he sort of let the kid take the credit so they could be like, yeah, see, I did it, and earn his way up. And that the chief sort of came over and was like, yeah, I know who did that. Because he passes him the drink. It's like, yeah, you earned this, buddy. So, but definitely feel like we're going to see. I mean, we know from the first time we saw Boba Fett at the end of the first episode of season 2, The Mandalorian, that he's got the Tusken Raiders weapons. He has sort of that look of the robes, that he may have lived among them. He at least earned weapons, and even when you look at the way they fight with them against him, you can see that they fight like Boba Fett fought in The Mandalorian season 2, that kind of the way he did. Another thing I wanted to ask you guys, when he does fight with Fennec Shand, when the guys with the ray shield come,
surround them.
And they had so I'm just thinking back to Fennec and Boba fighting the stormtroopers in The Mandalorian. I mean, they took on a lot of people and they really kicked butt, but they had a hard time getting to, out of this kind of situation they were in initially. Did anybody say, why is it so hard this time when they were just like balls to the walls, kick ass in The Mandalorian? Did it stick out to anybody?
It stuck out to me, but then I was like, well, they're surrounded by ray shields. So, but I also noticed that the Gamorreans were missing when they were walking through the town. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's why.
Oh, well, what stuck out to me was not necessarily that, but the fact that, you see Boba and Fennec get electrocuted by those things a little bit before, but that it doesn't bring them down. Whereas they use the electrocution on the dudes when they finally get the sticks. They use it and like one thing will bring those down. So I just thought that was amusing. It's like, oh, okay. Well, these heroes are leveled up and they're fighting stage 1 video game dudes. That's what it felt like to me.
I mean, I know that it's a storytelling moment to have the Gamorrean guards come out to say that they, because Fennec's like, oh, you're going to regret this taking them as guards, but then they really did honor their word. And we know from the trailers that he talks about, I want to lead with respect.
Yes.
So there was an interview with Robert Rodriguez, who said that they had to use very little of this episode. And he said it only from the first episode and only the first half, but I know that there are shots that are in the trailer that we haven't seen, but because the rest of what we saw would blow our minds. Like, do you think that like what we saw as far as these little Easter eggs and Max Rebo and that kind of stuff would have like in the trailer would have like ruined it or overblown people's minds?
I was actually thinking about that because you had told me that, and I'm like, well, what part?
Yeah,
that was what I was thinking to myself. I was like, what is supposed to blow my mind?
Yeah, like even if they showed that the monster creature that Jabba fights, like that wouldn't have blown our minds. Maybe that seeing Boba him in the Sarlacc pit. I think. Did I say Boba Fett?
You said Jabba.
Oh, I'm sorry, Boba Fett. But I feel like seeing him in the Sarlacc pit, that might have been like, oh, but like anything else, like I'm glad they didn't show us Easter eggs like Max Rebo or anything. Like those are meant to be fun little, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that as you're watching the episode.
Yeah, there wasn't any real for me like, oh moment, like, oh.
Well, okay, so I loved the parkour sequence where Fennec chased all those 2 guards over the rooftops. I thought that was so amazing. Are you referencing The Office?
Yeah. And everybody
totally
did a reaction video, put that in their video. I'm like, okay,
parkour.
Everybody's an Office fan.
Yes. I thought that was funny.
But yeah, I noticed that too. And I'm glad we're seeing a lot of Fennec, but my issue is going to lie if they relegate her to being just his little, for lack of a better word, because I don't have vocabulary, Boba stooge. You know, like I don't like, I need her to have an actual role. Like, I don't want her to just be his muscle, if you will. You know,
I feel like they've marketed it and talked about that she's kind of like an equivalent in this story. So I'm going to just go with, I hope that they're actually marketing what's really there, because Star Wars doesn't necessarily have a good track record on that. But I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope that's true, because I know now she's saying, Ming-Na's saying that she didn't convince Dave, and you know, because she said, hey, why don't you bring her back or whatever. I think he always had that kind of in his plan, that he was going to not just bring in Ming-Na to do one thing, and
right?
Because he knew we'd all be like podcasting about him, and
yeah. By the way, just a shout out to Ming-Na Wen. She is 58 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like freaking amazing. I hope I'm that awesome at 58 years old.
And she's like refurbishing her house and doing this and doing that and doing, I think she just started something new, which she can't say what she's doing, but I mean, the girl doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. 58. I want to have that much energy. The title, Stranger in a Strange Land, has a couple references. One of that, it's a biblical reference to Moses, that he's actually called that, A Stranger in a Strange Land. And there's also a sci-fi book with the same title about a man kind of out of place finding himself. So I thought that was pretty interesting that,
yes,
they were making some nods there.
That, and also a lot of Egyptian and Pharaoh nods as well, which dovetails with the Moses story. It makes me want to watch the 10 Commandments again, because apparently when Jabba was putting on his armor, or the droids were putting on his armor, it was very much like the Pharaoh getting dressed in the 10 Commandments and things like that. And being held on a litter, that's what the Pharaoh does, sits on a big throne, stuff like that. So
he sits on a litter?
A litter.
Yes,
yeah.
A litter. Thank you.
Puppies, a litter box, a litter.
A litter of massives.
A litter of massives.
They also use some words from Japanese words that were kind of referred to their feudal society in their history. So that was, and we could see that, right? There are people you have to fight to be a leader, and then you kind of have to maintain that. Whereas there's no true leader. I still think there's that moment when Boba Fett flies up, when it's in the episode The Tragedy, when they're of the Mandalorian and they're taking Grogu away, and he's following him up, and he like sees that it's an Imperial ship, and he like freaks out. He's like, they're back, I know it. And I still think that's so defining, that something about the Empire, and even the fact that there was a stormtrooper in there and they show him taking that oxygen from him, that there's something about the Empire that is so frightening to him that he's eventually going to stand up to them.
Maybe that's how he got his jacked up skin.
Who knows? But it's made an impression on him. I mean, if you think about it, a Jedi killed his father, and we see that little moment, which is cool. It's also from a different angle than in the movie. They changed the angle up a little bit, but that then his home, they make a point of showing his home. Now we know from the Bad Batch that's gone. Like the Empire wiped that out, and they also wiped out. He may not necessarily think of the clones as his brothers, but I think at some point when they were trying to come for the people that look like you're going to start taking it personally, because he can't get away from that, right? That they're out there trying to, the Empire wants to get rid of the clones now. They just want these people that can be, are just doing it of their own choosing, not because they have a chip in their head.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, where do you guys think, or where do you want this story to go?
Oh, I'm not going to answer that. That's called speculation. I put my foot down on that one. Wherever Dave and Jon Favreau want it to go is where we'll go.
Okay.
Oh, ultimately in the novels, the Mandalorians came back, including Boba Fett, and played a pivotal role in a big galactic war and helped. You can remember all the way back to that. I feel like we're still going to end up with Boba Fett being more than just a character that looked really cool in a couple of scenes. He has to do something that's impactful. And I don't think him being a bounty hunter or a crime lord is impactful in what is coming I think he's going to be more like a Lando Calrissian character where he maybe isn't a true North, but when it really needs to be done, he's going to step up and he's going to have the skills and the knowledge to do it.
That sounds cool. I just hope on a episode by episode level that they continue this backstory and present day tandem routine. I really enjoyed that dynamic, and I really want to see how he and Finnick met, like in some kind of backstory.
Yeah.
I think it's more than just he sees her. I think they must have met before. That moment we see in The Mandalorian, the first season. What is that? Episode 5? My most hated episode. Yes. But yeah, so that's what I hope for this series.
Well, I think what you guys said sounds good. Let's just go with that. I love Boba Fett, and that's not a shocker to anybody. I love the Mandalorians. I got the Boba Fett tracksuit from her universe, so I am all set and ready to go. I'm just glad to have something to watch moving into the new year. So that's all I need. That's all I need right there. So in case you guys didn't know, we have a Facebook group and we do these Zoom chat things. So Tricia, tell us a little bit about what's coming up on our Zoom chats.
Zoom chats will resume on January 8th. And the next one will be quite a discussion because we have the finale of Hawkeye to discuss, which we didn't get to discuss because we were off. Then this Book of Boba Fett, 2 episodes will be ready. And then if people want to talk about Spider-Man, No Way Home, we will talk about that too. We already did have a discussion, but not everybody had seen the movie. And I think there are plenty of people that would talk about it again. So
set aside 8 hours.
8 hours for Saturday night, January 8th, hosted by Sandra. And Kai is usually there too. And I am generally there. And we will talk about all those things. It's 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And the Zoom link is always up in our events page and on our Facebook group. And if you don't see it, just send a DM to Sandra or myself and we'll get it to you.
So you guys can find us in between episodes over at fangirlsgoingrogue.com, where that event page is that Tricia just mentioned. And if you want to get in touch with any of us individually or the show, you can find us on social media at FG Going Rogue. Tricia is at Fangirl Cantina. I am at Ice Cold Penguin. Sarah is at Jedi Tink. Sandra is at Geek Chic 9. And Kai is at Yogi Kai.
You can leave us a voicemail, 33121 Ewoks. That's 331-213-9657. Or leave us an email, contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com.
You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for Fangirls Going Rogue. You can like our page or request to join the group, but answer the questions that pop up when you want to join the group.
And please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. We need your reviews so more people can find us.
So until next time, yub.
Yub.
Yub. Yub.
Boba.
I like it. Boba. Woo.
That's my Tuscan Raider yell. No, it sounds like a seal.
Oh,